All right, hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going deep on something that, well, let's be honest, if you're prepping for the UPSC, you're going to run into this.
Oh, absolutely. Governors as chancellors in state universities, big topic.
Yeah, huge EE. And I think a lot of people, they see it on the syllabus and they're like, okay, yeah, governors, chancellors, whatever. British system, we kept it. Moving on.
Right, right. Seems simple enough.
But it's not. There's so much debate around this, and it gets into some really fundamental questions about how India governs its education system.
Totally. We're talking historical baggage, political power plays, questions of autonomy. It's a lot.
It is. So for this deep dive, we dug into a bunch of sources, commission reports, legal analyses, even some case studies of states trying to do things differently. And buckle up, because it's a wild ride.
It really is.
Okay, so first things first, let's set the stage. We got to go back to 1857, the British Raj, the whole deal.
Right. Back then, they set up this system where the governor of a province automatically became the chancellor of all the universities in that province.
And the idea was?
Control, plain and simple. The British wanted to make sure they had a tight grip on what was being taught, who was teaching it, the whole 9 yards.
Makes sense, from their perspective. But then, 1947 rolls around, India gets independence, and
we keep the system.
yeah, we keep it. So now the question is this something that's actually working for a democratic India? Or is it just this, like, leftover relic that's causing more problems than it's solving?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of what this system actually looks like in practice. So you're a governor, you're also the chancellor. What does that actually mean? What kind of power do you have?
Oh, significant power. I mean, you're talking about appointing vice-chancellors, right? Those are the folks running the universities day to day.
Right.
You're also involved in approving university statutes, the rules and regulations that govern the whole institution. And in some cases, you even have a say in financial decisions, academic appointments. It's a pretty big deal.
And this is where things start to get, well, kind of messy.
Oh, yeah. Because imagine this. You've got a state government, right, elected by the people of that state, and they're the ones funding the universities.
Right. Makes sense.
But then you've got the governor, appointed by the central government, who might be from a completely different political party. And they have all this power over the universities.
So you've got these two entities potentially at odds with each other, both trying to exert influence over the same institutions.
Exactly. And it's a recipe for conflict. I mean, one stat that really jumped out at me: between 1950 and 2015, over half of the governors appointed in India were active politicians.
Whoa, okay, so we're not even talking about, like, neutral academic figures here in a lot of cases.
Not always, no. And that raises some big questions about how this role is being used, right? Is it about advancing education,
Sure.
or is it about political maneuvering?
Right, right. And this tension, this potential for conflict, it's something that's been recognized for a long time. Like, even the Sarkaria Commission back in the 80s, they saw this coming.
Yeah, they did. They were like, hey, maybe governors should at least consult with the chief ministers on university matters, trying to find some kind of balance.
Right. But even then, even with consultations, you still have this fundamental issue of accountability, right?
Yeah.
Because who are the universities ultimately answerable to?
It's a tangled web, isn't it? I mean, they're getting funding from the state government, so they're beholden to them in a way. But then they've got the governor, who's appointed by the central government, breathing down their necks.
So it's like, who's the real boss?
Yeah. And that kind of ambiguity, it can lead to all sorts of problems: delays in decision-making, conflicting directives, just general chaos, really.
Yeah, it's like a recipe for bureaucratic gridlock. And actually, the Punchy Commission, they came along a bit later, and they looked at this whole thing, and they were basically like, nope, this isn't working. Governors shouldn't be chancellors at all.
Yeah, they took it a step further, didn't they? They were advocating for a complete separation of roles.
Totally. And they even had some pretty radical ideas about how to replace the governor as chancellor.
Yeah, like appointing eminent academics to the role. People with actual experience in the field of education.
Right, so you're taking the politics out of it, at least in theory. And this, I think, is where it gets really interesting, especially for you UPSC folks. Because this whole debate, it goes way beyond just, like, administrative efficiency.
Absolutely. This is about Indian federalism, right? One of the core principles of how power is divided in this country.
Exactly. So the question is it fair for a centrally appointed governor to have so much sway over a core area of state responsibility like education? I mean, that's an essay question right there.
It is, and it's something that comes up in interviews all the time.
All the time, and there's no easy answer, right? Because on the one hand, you can see the argument for having some kind of central oversight.
Right, to ensure quality, to maintain standards, all that.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, you've got states saying, hey, this is our education system. We should have the autonomy to run it the way we see fit.
It's a tough balance to strike, and honestly, it's a debate that's playing out all over India right now. You've got states experimenting with all sorts of different models.
Yeah, like Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra. They've gone with a more ceremonial role for governors. So they're still technically the chancellor, but they don't have as much day-to-day influence.
Right, and then you've got Telangana and Kerala who've tried to appoint their OWN chancellors.
Yeah, and they've run into some legal challenges with that.
They have. It's a complex issue, for sure.
It is. And then there are folks who are looking even further afield, like at international models, like Oxford and Melbourne, for example, where the universities actually elect their own chancellors.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. It gives the academic community a lot more say in who's leading them.
Right. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution here. But the fact that there's so much experimentation going on, it shows that people recognize that the current system, it's not perfect.
Definitely not.
So for anyone out there gearing up for the UPSC, this is a topic you really need to dig into. It's not just about memorizing historical facts or commission recommendations.
Right. It's about understanding the complexities of Indian federalism, the challenges of university governance, and the ongoing search for a system that actually works.
Exactly. And think about it. If you were tasked with designing a new system for India, what would be your top priority? Autonomy, accountability, expertise. It's a question worth pondering.
It really is. It's something that could come up in your interview.
No, absolutely. All right, so that's our deep dive on governors as chancellors. Hopefully you found it helpful.
Lots to think about.
Lots to think about. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the episode.
And a huge thank you to TH for the amazing research.
Couldn't have done it without him. All right, we'll see you next time.
See you then.